So we got this input box styled a little bit, which is nice. Now let's work on the elements in that box again, on the input element and the buttons, which aren't really buttons at this point. We just have a view with a text inside of it. It's not pressable at all. Now I will work on the buttons in a second step. I want to start with the input element. And for this, in the start game screen component, I'll add another style object in this style sheet, and this style object will be responsible for styling the input. Therefore, I'll name it input or text input or number input, since the goal is that users enter a number in there. But as you know, the name is up to you. Now this will be assigned to this text input by adding the style property to this text input, styles.number input, like this. And now the styles I do want to add are the following. I want to give this a height of, let's say, 50 pixels to have a fixed height on this input. And I want to give the text in there a font size of, let's say, 32 to have a nice big text in there. In addition, I want to change the color of the bottom border. I want to set this to a nice yellow color, which I also prepared in advance, and that would be the hex code DD-B52F. Like this. This is a nice yellow color, and that's the color I want to use here. And of course, it's probably clear anyways, but definitely feel free to play around with those colors and choose your own colors. Now, the border color is not the only thing we need to set. We also should set the border bottom width here to make sure that we can see this bottom border. And for this, I'll crank up the width a little bit and set it to 2 pixels. Now, I also want to change the color of the text that is entered in this input field, and I'll set it to the same yellow as we have it up here for the border bottom. So here I add the same string with the same hex code. Now, it would also be nice to have some empty space above and below the text input, and this can be achieved with margin, but to be precise, with margin vertical, which adds the same amount of space to the top and bottom. And here I want to add 8 pixels of space. Last but not least, I'll set the font weight to bold to make sure that we have some nice bold text that's being entered here. With that, if we save this, we got this yellow border at the bottom. And if I start typing here, this looks quite nice. I just think that it's a little bit too wide. We don't need that wide of an input field because we only enter a 2-digit number in there, or maybe just a 1-digit number, but definitely nothing longer than that. At the moment, you can enter anything in there, but we will soon restrict this, and we won't allow values higher than 99. So this is way too big, way too wide of an input field. Now, to control the width of this input element, we can use styling, but actually not just styling. But let's start with the styles and then talk about the other thing that we can do. Here on the number input, I want to make sure that this is shorter, that it's not as wide, and we can do this by setting a width here on this input. And the width could be 50 pixels as well, though you can of course play around with that value to find a fitting width that looks best for you. If I save this, this is now way shorter. It would be nice if the text would be centered in there though, and this is something which can be achieved with a styling property that you might know from the browser, because that's the text align property. We can set this to center the text in its container, so in this input element in this case. And if we save that, the text is centered. Now the overall input element is not centered yet. We will do this in a later step, but it is now shorter. However, at the moment you can still enter super long numbers in there, which causes this input element to become scrollable. And I don't want to be able to do that. I want to make sure that users can only enter numbers between 1 and 99 into this input element. And therefore we'll have at most 2 digits, 2 characters that will be entered here. And this can be achieved by adding a special prop to text input, the max length prop. Now, this prop takes the max number of characters that can be inserted into this input element. So we could try to set this equal to 2. If we do that though, we get an error, also here. On Android it crashed entirely, also nice. And if we have a look at this error, we see that in the end we have a problem with the type I chose. I chose type string, but expected is type number. And that indeed is the problem. We provided a string here by using quotes. Yes, it's a prop value, but it is a string. We're using quotes here. What we should pass in instead is a number. And this can be done by using curly braces instead of quotes, and then passing the number between those curly braces, like this. If I save this, now I don't have the error, and now if I try to enter more than 2 characters, it doesn't work. I'm hammering my keys on the keyboard, but nothing happens. I can enter 2 characters at most, and that's exactly what I want here. Now I will try to restart this on Android, so that we can also preview it there again. Sometimes it can crash like this. You can try restarting it then, or you restart the entire npm start process. But here, restarting worked, and now we have our input element there as well. So that's now a first step. But we still have a couple of problems here. For example, I can still enter any kind of character here into this input field. I get the regular keyboard, which offers me all these regular characters, and getting to the numbers is a bit annoying. That is something we can also change, because of course that is not the behavior I want here.